Welcome to the realm of Millenia. Be ye man, woman, child, spirit, creature, or demand. Be ye a native migrator, or maybe even an invader into the land. Welcome, for I am your host here today, the Millennium Mailman on a hot take Humpday for week 13, Devil's Advocate. Topic of the hot take today is pride dooms and kills, arrogance saves long before it harms anyone. And that's because pride is a bark without bite, and arrogance is when you have the capability to back up what the things you're really advertising. And being overly either one just makes you ignorant to how negatively your current actions may directly affect your ability to be capable of acting later on. Right? Now I got what seem to be like 4 different plot points here that kind of can act as supporting evidence to the discussion in this argument, and we can run down those. But again, I thank all of you guys that view and watch. I appreciate you. Now let's get into the Devil's Advocate hot take. I would like to remind you, I don't actually have a sway to most of these arguments. This is just me voicing the hot take. These are not my hot takes. They're not even, most of them, once you actually get to them, are not actually things I care or support about. They're just things I find myself capable of defending because I'm an antagonist like that. Right? But hey, anyway, pride dooms and kills, arrogance saves long before it harms anyone. Right? Now, first point there is that pride is dooming. It's got a whole cinematic tropes attached to ruining anything and everyone involved with the person who is prideful. Arrogance is that K-pop sexy dramatized, sexy, handsome figure every single time until they are found like overly arrogant, and that overindulgence of arrogance is what effectively turns on them because of this dopamine shot injected into them that makes them less attractive and turns them into more of a buzzkill blue baller, right? Where a prideful character is just seen as the CEO douchebag, and then the arrogant characters are the hot ones that all the women are trying to lust over, per se, from the old to the young and hip. That is the whole cinematic trope background between the difference of pride and arrogance. It's like, no, they're stoic, they know their worth, versus they're just pieces of trash. What a prideful man. That's the difference between pride and arrogance. Now, second point, biblically and as far as Christianity goes, anger is pretty okay. Wrath isn't okay. Because wrath is considered to be more so the decisions you're making in anger. Remember, anger is okay. Wrath is not, because wrath is the decisions you're choosing to make in your anger, which is why the whole scripture around that is do not go to bed in anger or make decisions in your wrath before you go to sleep, because when you wake up you'll still be meditating on it or whatever, so forth. I'm not a biblical expert, but that's the 1-2-3 there, and that whole point in discussion that goes around in the community. Anger is okay as per the Christian and biblical. Anger is okay. Wrath isn't okay, because when you think about it, wrath is like the decisions made behind it. How does this tie into pride and arrogance? I promise it does make sense. Let me continue and stop digressing. Wrath is the decisions you make in your anger, because no one makes wise choices in their anger. Everyone is competent enough, or here's the key word of tie-in, capable enough to do the right things and do what they need to do while angry, right? So even if it's not their very best, it's like some people, they work better angry. Some people work less effectively angry, right? Even if you cannot do your best work in anger, you can still work despite being angry. I hate working here. I hate doing this. I hate doing that. Cool. You're angry that you have to work here for a check so that you can live comfortable. Great. That doesn't stop you from working at all. Right? So everyone is capable of doing what is right despite being angry. Anger is okay. Wrath and wrathful decisions, not so much, because it's really hard and not really something people are capable of making wise decisions in wrath, because the whole point of wrath is that you're making poor decisions and poor choices. That is wrath. The kinds of decisions you're making in your anger is not conducive. But that's the whole point of planning out in advance, the hoping for the best and planning for the worst. If you get angry, go in accordance to the plan. All right? But everyone is competent or capable enough to do the right thing or do what they need to do despite being angry, even if it's not their best. And that is the best they can do. So in my book, even I have my own renditions of like the 7 deadly sins. I mean, pick an author, pick a movie maker or director who doesn't. Like, come on. I have my own relative rendition of the 7 deadly sins. But what I have those particular 7 deadly sin characters doing is, instead of like the normal thing, which is like to have them solely embody that one of the 7 deadly sins, when those characters come on screen, the whole point of them on the screen is being like, hey, most people will tell you who they are and what they are. No, I'm going to tell you what I'm not, right? So the sin of wrath is going to be the one explaining. So like everyone understands wrath as crazy and psycho. I'm not that. I am just the embodiment of like poor choices, because wrath is a choice. Anger is something you can't help. It's an emotion. Wrath is the choice you make despite that. So on and so forth. So the real thing here that ties in would be like the sin of pride. Pride is the sin because pride is that bark with no bite. Even in the 7 Deadly Sins anime series, there is Escanor. I believe the name is Escanor. There's the character Escanor, who's like half the time buff as Hulk and the rest of the time just your run-of-the-mill doorman type butler figure, where he's arrogant mostly throughout the series, and that's his reputation. But the other perspective of the time, he's the sin of pride, and what people generally connected to the whole idea of pride. Pride and arrogance go hand in hand. And so I have my deadly sin of pride being a part of addressing the fact that arrogance is not pride. You can be prideful and arrogant, but you cannot be arrogantly. It's like there's staunch differences. There are ways to tie them together, but in a particular way, you can't have both at once. You can't be arrogant and prideful. You can be pridefully arrogant. You might think you are capable of doing things, but the difference between pride and arrogance is whether or not you're actually capable of backing up the things you're talking about, right? So that is definitely part of the discussional piece there, where the character of Pride in my novel is like, what I am not is arrogant. I am never arrogant. I can be smart, I can be dumb, I could be anything and everything all at once. But what I can't actually do is pride can never be arrogant. I can make the arrogant prideful, but pride is never arrogant, because arrogant is a semblance of in arrogance there's always capability. And the thing about pride is that you're not actually capable of being like able to follow through. Right? So in my book, I have my own rendition of the 7 deadly sins, and for the sake of the devil's advocate topic this week, it's pride. But I have them teach the difference between what makes them the deadly sin part and what certain, I don't know, devil's advocates would lead you to believe and swindle you into believing is the difference. Because again, I did a whole video on what devil's advocate is, or at least part of a video, and I'll definitely be talking about that a lot moving forward. Devil's advocate is when you're speaking from the, like I do for the YouTube channel, when you're speaking from the perspective of a devil, the whole point is to twist the wording and the verbiage such that it's easier to swindle and deceive. So when I speak from the devil's advocate perspective, I am manipulating the words in a manner to quite directly and intentionally mislead you or convince you of something, or reveal the truth of something that is twisted and swindled to you in order to convince you that I'm a trustworthy one. I'm a trustworthy devil. I promise. I promise. I promise. Right? Never beating the allegations. But yes, that is the whole point there. So in my book, I have the numerous number of devil's advocates, and the devil's advocates are the ones out here projecting these propagandized forms of the twisted truth, no matter how little, right? They twist it, and while generally even the twisting of the truth doesn't change the general understanding of the actual things themselves, it does in fact also make it irrecognizable and indistinguishable, the very true thing indistinguishable from the truth that people came to know and understand. So when I bring in the 7 deadly sins to kind of like testify on their own behalfs, it's like, yes, I do bad things, but this is the bad things I do, not the things that people actually ever led you to believe I do. Those are two mutually exclusive things. I do these things and you think I'm the cause of all of these things. Like, no, I'm only the cause of these, which actually have no influence over the bubble. What you guys put in that bubble came from around the things I do. They're connected to things I do, but nothing that I actually ever did before, right? But yes, the sin of pride Pride dooms and kills because it's a bark with no bite. And when you get to speaking reckless as if you were that big dog and you're not a big dog, you're gonna get yourself hurt. Because arrogance is a big dog that may or may not bite. A big dog that can bite is because it's capable. It's an arrogant dog, right? But may not actually bite. A little Chihuahua versus a Great Dane. Like, come on here. A little Chihuahua versus a pure breed wolf. That was absolutely cringe. I will never do that growl again, right? But pride dooms and kills. When you get to be prideful, you are dooming yourself because you are talking out the side of your neck when you're not actually capable of following through with none of that. Something's on my glasses. Vice. Arrogance, which is when, by definitions and further proper understanding of the verbiage, arrogance is when you're actually capable of following through with the things you're talking about. It might sound prideful when you're arrogant because it's like, wow, you're really blowing yourself, gassing yourself, and making it larger than life. Well, like, I understand that's not how that comes across. I might sound prideful, but it's the real truth, and you're gonna find if you choose to, you can mess around and find the hell out. But that's the difference between prideful and arrogance. I'm actually able to back up the things I say and talk about, and you can mess around and find out just how true that is. But I'm not prideful because the things I say are true and like legitimate, right? That's the difference between pride and arrogance. I think the video is long, so I'll save the other two for the next video. I'll make a part 2 to this, but yes, pride dooms and kills. Arrogance saves long before it harms anyone. That's all I got. Like the video, comment down in the comment section down below. Any questions, comments, concerns? Share the video for more exposure, and subscribe if you feel like, dislike the video if you don't, and peace. Click.